they not finally dare the man Tinubu. Of course, as you have it, they are insisting on a Jonathan. We understand that there are so many controversies surrounding a Jonathan ambition, from litigation to insinuation that they not want to use it to sabotage the chance of the Southern presidency. As we have it, this is from, of course, Vanguard newspaper. It's saying no going back on Jonathan in 2027, PDP Northern Support Group. You go further to say that in what appears to be a major political statement ahead of the 2027 general elections, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Northern Support Group, has reaffirmed its total support for the leadership of the party's acting national chairman, Ambassador Iliya Umar Damagu, and declared full backing for the return of former President Goodluck Jonathan as the party's presidential flag bearer or rather candidate. So I think these are put to rest the speculation whether a Jonathan will likely contest the election or not. But as I said earlier on, there are so many controversies surrounding a Jonathan ambition. As we have it, there are some school of thought that believe that he's not eligible to contest, hence having been sworn in 2 times as President of Federal Republic of Nigeria in light of a bill that was signed into law by former President, of course, Muhammadu Buhari, where it was stated that if you succeed your principal after his death, that you are entitled to contest only once. But there's another school of thought that believe that Nigerian law do not operate retroactively. As such, hence a Jonathan case was already on ground before the law was enacted, that the Jonathan will be exonerated from that very law. But as we have it, let me bring you up to speed with what Punch is talking about, a case that was decided in Bayelsa in sometime 2022. Of course, according to the judgment of a court in Bayelsa State, he said updated, court clears Jonathan to contest presidency. Going forward, he said the Federal High Court sitting in Yonagwa, Bayelsa State, has ruled that the former president, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, is eligible to contest the 2023 presidential election. I think this happened before the 2023 presidential election. Going forward, I said the presiding judge, Justice Issa Hammer Dashen, gave the judgment on Friday in a suit marked FHC YNG CS 86 2022. He also heard that Jonathan's right to vie for the office of the president again cannot be stopped by any retroactive law. Of course, I think that issue of retroactive is the major contention here. Since a Jonathan case was already on ground before that law was enacted, I think that is the basis of which those who are proposing that he is eligible to contest are standing on that ground. We are moving forward into the conversation. The way it is, I don't know, because if somebody seek to challenge this judgment, some people will equally argue that it is already status bar, that the time allowed for appeal have elapsed. That is on one hand. But I don't know whether somebody will have the right or the power to approach Supreme Court for a proper interpretation of that law. But what I do understand is that in Nigerian legal jurisprudence, the Nigerian law do not operate retroactively, except if it is expressly stated when the law was being enacted or in procedural law. But as we have it, we are still waiting and looking at what will actually transpire if Jonathan eventually decides to throw his hand into the ring. But I know that certainly his eligibility must be tested in court. That is what I know. Because someone like a senior advocate of Nigeria, talking about the current, of course, Minister of Aeroplace and Aviation, Professor Kayamu, have come out clearly to say that a Jonathan may not be qualified in terms of that law. Though he was not emphatic. That's why I say certainly I believe that that law must be tested, or rather his eligibility must be tested in court if he finally decides to throw his hat into the ring. But I have it, There's a school of thought that believe that a Jonathan that is not is the one trying to use a Jonathan to truncate the chance of the South. Because it's the belief that if a Jonathan eventually contests, perhaps under PDP, an article is on the ballot under ADC, that definitely the vote of the South will be depleted, will be shared, and as such, it will give an article upper hand to win the election come 2027. But other school of thought is challenging that position, saying that even in 2015, that the current president, talking about Senator Bola Tinubu, was in the vanguard of those who mobilized, who formed alliance against a Jonathan, a co-Southern person, to deprive him from re-election in 2015. Some people will tell you that it is politics. When Tinubu did it, that it was politics that was at play. And some people will equally tell you that currently that politics is at play. But it's not certain whether a Jonathan will eventually contest this election. But we are watching and looking at how event of vote is set. But what is certain is that his cousin have made it very clear that he will definitely contest. We are seeing Jerry Ghana coming clearly to see that he will contest. We have equally seen Bala Mohammed, of course, someone that served under Jonathan administration in the past as a minister, coming out clearly to say a Jonathan will contest. And of course, he is the current governor of Bauchi State and the, of course, chairman of PDP Governors Forum. But in all of this, politics of 2027 is already taking shape. And we're already seeing alignment, realignment, and people are already deciding where to go and where not to go. But ultimately, I think Nigeria deserves a free, fair, and credible election. I think that's where I stand as a person. Because for me, once you have free, fair, and credible process, it is irrespective of who come out of the process or rather who wins. Because what is certain? If the process is free, fair, and credible, anybody that comes out of that process will be responsible to the people. That is where I decide. That's where I say that it is good we tinker with the idea of amending the current electoral acts to the point where we can have free, fair, and credible election. I want to believe that if we have free, fair, and credible election, if a Tinubu wins, I don't have issue with it. If a Jonathan contests and wins, I don't have issue with it. The only thing is that I am for Southern candidacy. Even if an OB contest and win, I don't have issue with it. But the point is, I'm for Southern candidacy because I believe that tacit agreement that exists between South and North and South, that says that if you not govern for 8 years, the South have to govern for 8 years. I want to believe that tacit agreement must be respected. Because in all the 8 years of Muhammadu Buhari, I want to say there is so much wastage in terms of public resources. So in light of all of this, do we not say the North should just come back to power? Because we are seeing the country is battling and grasping with the issue of about $18 billion spent on trying to feast Nigerian refineries. You need to wonder, how can someone spend whooping sum of $18 billion? At the end of the day, none of the refineries is operational. And the Dangote refinery that is seen as the largest single train refinery in the whole world was built with $20 billion. So it means the amount that was used to build Dangote refinery is what the government of Muhammadu Buhari wasted. And as we speak, nobody is asking questions. I want to believe that we should get to a point where we have people who have the moral standard to ask questions as to how that money went. Who did what? Who spent it? Because for me, that money was misappropriated. But it's not possible that you spend money to fix a refinery. At the end of the day, the refinery is not working and the money is nowhere to be found. Of course, we cannot forget in a hurry how that same government of Muhammadu Buhari spent 20 trillion naira borrowed from, or 30 trillion naira, I mean to say, borrowed from CBN through ways and means. And as we speak, nobody have even reason to get the courage to question how that money was spent. And it's understandable that in all the borrowing, that government breached the Eastern laws that established that window. Even if they later went to amend the law, because we understand that what the law says is that you cannot borrow more than 5% of your annual earning. And if you borrow in a particular year, you are not eligible to borrow in a preceding year except you have paid what you borrowed in the previous year. And we saw that government borrowing exceeding 5% of its annual budget every year they borrowed. We equally saw the government borrowing in spite of the fact that they couldn't meet up with the debt obligation of the previous year. This they did in 8 years, and we had accumulated debt owed to CBN that amounted to about 20 or 30 trillion naira. And as we speak, nobody's asking questions. But at this point, let me say very thank you for that. This is Sadla Midana Misawatu.